And I see in verse 1, it says these are more Proverbs of Solomon.
但是我在第一节看到说，这边说这是所罗门王所记载的更多的箴言。
And the Proverbs that come in chapter 25 and following are copied by men of Hezekiah, king of Judah.
而且这些是被犹大王希西家所记录下来的。
Now we can look at the list of kings of Israel. Hezekiah is not the next king after Solomon.
我们知道，如果我们去看所有的王的一些记录的话，一些历史的话，我们发现希西家王不是所罗王以后设立的王。
So as we think about verse 1, we can see that King Solomon had proverbs written down by other people.
所以如果我们看到25章的第一节的时候，我们会看到所罗门王的箴言被其他的人也记录下来。
He dictated chapters 1 to 24 to his son.
所以他是第1章到第24章都是写给他儿子的。
He starts off telling his son, stay away from wicked people.
他跟他的儿子说，你要远离恶人。
Just stay away from them and stay away from bad women and bad alcohol.
所以你要远离恶人，远离这些坏的女人，也远离酒。
Stay away from drunkenness and sexual immorality.
所以你要远离醉酒跟淫乱。
King Solomon knew that these two temptations are common to every man.
所罗门知道这样的诱惑会使每个男人都去面对。
And so he wants his son to learn from his mistakes.
所以他要让他的儿子从他的错误当中学习。
And not only his mistakes, but his daddy's mistakes, King David.
仅仅是他的一些过犯，而且是他父亲的一些过犯，就是大卫王。
The man who wrote the first 24 chapters was Bathsheba's son.
所以这个箴言的前面的24章都是从他的太太88的儿子所罗门写的。
And to remind you of King David and Bathsheba, it might help.
提醒你关于大卫王跟88应该有帮助。
Sexual immorality led to murder.
所以淫乱会导致于谋杀。
Sexual immorality led to the birth of a child.
所以淫乱也会让一个孩子降生。
The child died, and King David was very sorrowful.
那个孩子出生的时候就死了，大卫王为这个而感到悲痛。
We should always be sorrowful when a child dies.
我们应该永远的都为一个孩子一出生就过世而感到悲伤。
We should be sorrowful when somebody is murdered.
我们也需要为某一些人被谋杀而感到悲伤。
Sexual immorality led to murder, the death of a child, and to trouble in King David's house until the day he died.
对一个刚出生就死了的这样的一个孩子，会让大卫王非常的忧伤，一直到他年迈的时候，
King Solomon ends
到
with
他死的时候。
King Solomon ends chapter 24 with telling his son, work hard.
所以他也告诉他的儿子要很努力的工作。
If you do not work hard, you will not eat.
在24章也提过，如果你不工作的话，你就不要吃饭。
And that is King Solomon talking to his son.
这些都是所罗门王跟他的儿子讲的。
We now have wise sayings that Solomon spoke to other people.
那我们现在看到说，所罗门也跟别的人在讲话。
His son probably knew them.
他的儿子可能也知道，
His son probably heard them.
他的这个儿子也听到了，
But he heard them being spoken to other people, not to him.
但是他听到他跟别人讲，而不是跟儿子们讲。
And often we listen and learn from people talking to other people.
我们经常从别人跟别人讲话中学习到很多东西。
All too often, a child will not listen when you talk to them directly.
很多情况，一个孩子你直接跟他说的话，他不会直接听。
But they will listen when you're talking to their sister or their brother.
但是如果你跟他的哥哥姐姐在说的时候，他会听的。
They will listen when you're talking to some other student in the classroom.
如果你在班级里面跟其他的学生在说的时候，他们也会听。
But when the teacher focuses his eyes on the student, quite often the student's mind closes down, stops thinking.
经常如果一个老师，看着一个学生在说的时候，他就会根本不听。
So it is when we study the Bible and go to chapter 25.
跟我们在学25章是一样的。
We want in our thinking to realize he's no longer talking to his son.
我们必须要知道，他不只是在跟他的儿子在说。
This is a collection of wise sayings.
这是一个广泛的知道的一件事情。
Just simply look at chapter 24. They have verses grouped together, 2 by 2, 2 by 2.
所以你在24章看到都是两句话的说。
Look at chapter 25. Each verse stands alone.
25章，
Each verse stands alone.
一个经节是自己独立的。
If a preacher isn't careful, we won't get through 3 verses.
如果一个牧师他很仔细的话，你会看不到他们写3句话在一起。
So buckle your seatbelt. We're going to try to drive fast through these.
所以现在我们要系 上安全带，我们现在要比较快的来讲这些经节。
Some of them are easy to understand.
有的是很容易明白的。
And we all say, Amen.
然后我们都会说阿门。
Some of these are like potholes in the road. We say, oh, me.
有的话语我们会说哦，这就是我。
And we try to avoid thinking of those.
我们试着去这样去想。
Look at verse 2.
我们看第二节。
You ever think God is trying to hide things from you? Do you think God is trying to hide things from you?
你觉得上帝是想要将一些事情向你隐瞒吗？
Of course he is. It's his glory.
是的，是的，因为这是神的荣耀。
Have you ever hidden a toy from your child to teach the child to look for things?
因为把一个玩具藏起来，然后让这个小孩子自己去寻找呢？
We play hide and seek, don't we?
我们经常会去找猜一猜的这个游戏。
We play run and tag. We play hide and seek.
我们会玩那种捉迷藏的游戏。
It's the glory of God to make us think about things.
所以，当神让我们去思考某一些事情的时候，这是神的荣耀。
And to have time and energy to think about things and to figure out how things work, that's the glory of kings.
将事查清，乃君王的荣耀。
Some cultures are very, very poor.
有一些文化是比较贫穷的。
When I was in Africa in 1977, I learned this firsthand.
当我1977年在非洲的时候，我学到了第一手资料。
I was running a dormitory of high school students. I was in
我跟
charge.
一群高中的孩子们在一起。
I was in charge of the dormitory.
所以我在那一个宿舍，我是主管。
They were having difficulties, and I was sent in to straighten it out.
因为这些孩子中间有很多麻烦，我去了是让他们去帮助他们。
We all know that when you go to straighten things out, it helps to know what you're doing.
我们都知道，当我们去查清一些事情的时候，就会帮助我们知道我们在做什么。
We all know it helps to know the facts.
也让我们知道事实是什么。
You can't just work on thoughts in your head. You have to look outside and see what is really happening.
我们不可以只是凭空想象，凭自己的头脑去思想，我们要去看到真实发生的事情是什么。
This is called science-based, data-driven work.
这些是就是凭实际考察的一些经验。
It doesn't solve all the problems, but it helps.
虽然它不会解决很多问题，但是它确实有帮助。
Some things are concealed. We cannot find out the data on it.
有的事情是隐秘的，我们根本不能够测透。
But it's the glory of kings to search it out.
但是君王的荣耀去查清。
It was the glory of this director of the dormitory to search out what the problems were.
同样的，在这个高中的宿舍里面，也是一种荣耀，去把这个事情查清。
One of the facts that I discovered was I was spending 35% of my time looking for food to feed the children.
有一个事实就是，我必须要花35%的时间去帮助这些孩子们找食物。
In a poor society, people spend a great deal of time simply trying to find food to stay alive.
在一个贫穷的国家，你必须要花很多的精力去找食物得以糊口。
And if they can't grow it, they need to earn money to buy it.
如果他们不可以种植这些庄稼的话，这些粮食的话，他们就必须要有钱去买它。
Or somebody has to buy it for them.
或者别人帮他们买。
And if somebody else is going to buy it, two things have to happen.
如果别人要帮他们买的话，有两样事情要发生。
Either they buy it for you because they love you,
要么就是他们帮你买，因为他们爱你。
or it has to be stolen from them.
或者是去偷。
Poor people have difficulty stealing, don't they?
穷人他比想要偷都比较难。
It's the glory of God to conceal things. Man searches it out.
所以将是隐秘是神的荣耀，将是查清乃君王的荣耀。
And if we're spending 35% of our time just trying to stay alive, there's not much time to think.
如果我们花35%的时间花时间去找食物的话，我们就真的没有什么时间去思考。
And it's normal to think about money.
而且，如果我们去思考钱的事的话，这是很正常的。
Do I get a second job?
我是不是要再去找一份第二份工作呢？
Do I put my children to work and take their money?
要不要让我的孩子也去做工呢？可以，然后把他们的钱拿来呢？
Do I go rob somebody?
我要不要去抢别人呢？
Such is the problem of a poor people. That is the problem of poor people.
这些都是这些穷人的，这些穷人所要面临的事。
But the king had time to think about these things back then.
但是这些王，他们有很多时间去思考这些事情，在过去的这个年代。
And rich nations have a lot of people freed to think about these things.
而且，如果是一个很富有的地方，他们会有更多的时间去思考这些事情。
And the wise person realizes that once you have some money, you can keep on thinking about getting more.
所以他们想到的是，有些人当你有了钱的时候，你会去想到还要有更多的钱。
Or you can start thinking about sharing what you have.
或者你去把你的钱跟别人去分享。
And if you keep focusing on money, you'll forget about the Creator.
如果你一直在想钱的问题的话，你就会忘记了 创造宇宙万物的神。
And what did the Creator create?
这个创造主他都创造了什么呢？
As the heavens are high and the earth is deep, so the heart of kings are unsearchable. Verse 3.
第三节，天之高地之厚，君王之心也测不透。
The heavens, space is high.
所以这个天堂或者这天是非常高的。
The human race figured out how to land somebody on the moon.
那我们人类已经知道怎么样把人送到月球上。
We're now figuring out how to get to Mars.
我们也知道该怎么样去火星。
Buzz Lightyear in the movie Toy Story is going to go to infinity and beyond.
所以有一个导演的他的这个电影里面是写的，怎么样到无限的宇宙当中。
That's just the space above us.
这只是我们上面的一个空间。
The earth is deep.
这个地球是非常厚的。
Have you ever dug a hole in your garden to plant
你
something?
有没有在你的院子里面挖一个洞或者挖一个坑去养花呢？
Heaven symbolizes space, earth symbolizes material matter.
所以这个天象征着这个空间，然后地象征着很多事情的发生。
And in America, if you dig a hole deep enough, you dig a hole to China.
如果在美国，如果你把那个地挖得很深的话，你会挖到中国。
That's an old phrase, a proverb in America.
这个是以前在美国一个很著名的箴言，在美国的。
If you're digging a hole to put in a post to build a fence, you dig the hole to China.
如果你挖一个洞，然后一直挖的话，会挖到中国。
If you dig a hole in China deep, where do you dig it to? I don't know.
那你继续挖到中国的时候，你在中国一直挖，会挖到哪里呢？我不知道。
Maybe you dig a hole to Australia. Who knows?
或者你可能挖到澳大利亚了。
Maybe you dig a hole to Moscow. I don't know.
或者是莫斯科，我不知道。
But the heavens are high, the earth is deep.
但是我们知道天之高地之厚，
We're never going to get to the end of the universe, and we're never going to dig to the middle of the earth.
我们也没有办法，去到宇宙以外，我们也没有办法看到universe，OK，宇宙中，挖到宇宙中。
Fei Cheng Hao interpreter, very good. So the heart of the king, cannot be figured out either.
对，就像君王的心一样，测不透。
And not only the heart of the king, it's hard to figure out anybody's thoughts.
不仅仅是君王的心测不透，每个人的想法你也测不透。
When you start talking with a different culture, people in a different culture, you get to know each other.
当你跟不同文化背景的人在讲话的时候，你就会彼此了解。
and you get to ask sensitive questions.
有时候会问到一些很敏感的问题。
My father talked about talking with Korean pastors.
我的父亲曾经跟韩国的一些外交官在讲话，韩国的牧师在讲话。
He asked his interpreter a sensitive question.
他问了他的翻译一些很敏感的问题。
He asked the interpreter, what is it strange about white people?
他说：“这些白人他们到底有什么不同呢？”
What do you Koreans find strange about white people?
你们看到的这些白人，你们到底觉得他们跟别人有什么样的不同？
And the interpreter said, well, your eyes are sunk way back in your head.
那个翻译就是说，哦，你们的眼球好像，离眼睛非常深。
And you have dark, bushy eyebrows out front.
然后你的眉毛特别重，
And we can't ever figure out what you're thinking.
然后我们根本不知道你们在想什么。
And my father laughed.
然后爸爸就在笑，
And he said, that's very interesting.
他说这挺有趣的。
White people look at the Korean face.
这白人看到这些韩国人的脸，
Your eyes are way out front on your face.
你们的眼睛在正前面。
You have eyebrows we can hardly see.
你们的眉毛我们几乎都看不到，
And we never know what you all are thinking.
我们也不知道你们在想什么。
It's hard to know what somebody's thinking, isn't it?
你很难去猜到别人在想什么，对吗？
Sometimes we cannot figure out what our children are thinking.
有时候我们都不知道自己孩子们在想什么。
I remember doing things and my mama commenting on them.
我记得我以前，有一些我的事情，我的妈妈都拿来当成笑话。
She would say, what possessed you to do that? Why did you do that?
你怎么会想到做这个呢？
I don't know why I did it,
我也不知道我为什么做了，
but my mama wanted to know.
但是我妈就要知道。
So verse 4 makes sense.
所以第4节是让我们可以明白的。
We're in the process of growing up.
我们是在成长的一个阶段，
Physically, emotionally, spiritually.
我们的身体需要成长，我们的情感需要成长，我们的灵性也需要成长。
If you know how to make silver, verse 4 makes sense.
如果你知道怎么样炼银子的话，你就知道怎么样，你就很容易明白。
Silver is mixed into rock material.
银子是从石头中来提取出来的，
So you put it in a pot and heat the pot up very hot.
然后你会放在一个热的容器当中，让它加热，
And all the impurities rise to the top and you can scoop them off.
所以很多那些 残渣会在上面，那你就会可以把它们出去。
And the heavy silver goes to the bottom of the pot.
因为银子比较重，它们会在这些容器当中的底部。
So you take off the dross from the silver, and out comes the real stuff, the silver.
所以你除去银子的残渣，就有银子出来。
And look what it says. It says it's material for the silversmith. It's material for the silversmith.
所以这些会变成银匠，就是这些可以让银匠去使用的一些，让他可以去做器皿。
All of us are being purified.
我们每个人都会要被炼净。
Trial and tribulation is the heat that takes care of the impurities.
所以我们的磨难，我们的苦难，都会把我们磨练得更纯正。
You want to get the truth out of a child, put him under cross-examination.
如果你想要知道一个孩子诚不诚实的话，你就可以去给他们这样的考验。
Cross-examine him, don't torture him.
可以考验他们，但是不要去惹他们。
If you torture somebody, they'll tell you whatever they want, whatever you want to hear. If you torture someone, they will tell you whatever you want them to say.
torture 的英文怎么翻？攻击。
She's no longer.
I forgot about.
Okay.
It's not even in Zoom.
If you.
I don't know how to translate it. Torture.
Okay. If you hurt them badly, if you hurt them badly, they will tell you whatever you want them to say.
如果你很严厉的去鞭打他们的话，他们会去说你想要得到的一些答案。
But if you simply put them under a little bit of pressure, then you find out what they're really made of.
但是如果你只是想要给他们施加一点点压力的话，你可能会知道答案。
So as we are purified by life's experiences, we become material for the silversmith.
所以当我们被炼净的时候，我们就成为银匠，可以做器皿的一些银子。
And we are shaped by the silversmith.
我们的形状也是这位银匠所造的。
The silversmith might be the king.
这个银匠可能是一个王。
The silversmith might be the creator.
这个银匠也可以是我们的创造主。
If you are hanging around bad, evil people, they will shape your silver.
如果你跟着这些坏的人在一起的时候，他们可能会把你变成一个不同的器皿。
But they'll steal most of it first.
But what?
They will steal your silver first.
但是他们要先偷取你的银子。
And all that's to say, verse 5.
这些都是要说第5节。
The king's job is to remove the wicked from society.
所以王的工作就是要把这个社会上的一些恶人给除去。
If someone is not doing their job, remove them from the king's presence.
所以除去王面前的恶人。
Because his throne is established through righteousness, doing the right thing.
因为他的国位就靠公义建立。
For a king to stay on his throne, he needs to punish wickedness and reward righteousness.
所以一个国王要稳固在他的宝座上，他就必须要惩罚恶人，然后奖励这些公义的人，坚立。
So that means, is there right and wrong?
所以这意思就是说，到底有没有对跟错呢？
Are there things that are absolutely always the right thing to do?
是不是有些事情是一定是就是你要做的对的事呢？
Are there some things that are always absolutely the wrong thing to do?
是不是有的事情就是绝对是不可以做的，绝对是坏的事呢？
Even children know there's a right and a wrong.
其实孩子他们也知道什么是对的跟错的。
Different cultures might think different things are right, different things are wrong.
不同的文化，他们可能会觉得有一些事情是对的，有些事情不同的事情是错的。
But all cultures agree on some things always being right and always being wrong.
但是所有的文化都会知道哪一些事情是真的是对的，有一些事情是真的是错的。
A culture that does not honor the elderly runs into trouble.
那些不尊重老人的文化，他们就会惹到很多麻烦。
A culture that does not respect young people runs into trouble.
那些文化如果他们不尊重孩子们的话，也会有很多的麻烦。
A culture that does not insist on people telling the truth runs into trouble.
如果有些地方他们并不在意你说的是不是诚实的话， 也会有很多麻烦。
A culture that allows people to steal runs into trouble.
如果有些文化他们允许一些人去偷的话，也会有很多麻烦。
A country that destroys families runs into trouble.
如果一些文化他们毁坏一个家庭的话，也会有很多麻烦。
And the two ways to destroy families is sexual immorality and money.
那两件事会毁坏一个家庭，就是淫乱和钱。
In the Old Testament days, divorce was allowed to the Hebrew people.
在旧约里面，离婚对于希伯来人来说是可以的。
Divorce has been around a long, long time on the planet.
所以离婚在这个世界上已经产生很久了。
Sometimes it's been acceptable, sometimes it's been seen as bad.
有的地方是可以接受的，但是有的地方他们觉得这是很错误的。
But we're not going to think, is it good or bad right now?
我们不是去想它到底是
we're going to think about the causes. We're going to talk about the causes that lead to divorce.
我们要去找离婚的原因。
I'm sure somebody's been divorced because she cooked a bad meal.
我肯定的，我很肯定的说，有一些人他们离婚是因为他们做饭做得很差。
Somewhere on the planet, a husband wanted to divorce his wife, so he waited until she cooked a bad meal and said, "That's why I'm divorcing you."
有一些地方，在这个世界上的某一些角落，有的男的想要跟女的离婚，然后他就等着他做饭做得很难吃的时候，他就跟他讲，我跟你离婚的原因就是因为你做的太难吃了。
If you look at the statistics, what brings people to a divorce? Bad cooking or sexual immorality?
如果你去看资料的调查资料的显示，你会发现到底是你做饭做的差呢，离婚的原因还是因为淫乱的关系。
What leads to friction that leads to divorce in a marriage?
所以到底是什么是离婚的导火线？
Money.
钱也是，
Not having enough?
你没有很多钱，
Arguing about how
钱
to
不够，
arguing about how to spend it.
然后每天为了怎么样花去跑。
Look at the causes of divorce and you understand why sexual immorality is always wrong.
所以如果你去看到底这些是离婚的原因的话，你会发现，淫乱肯定是错的。
And focusing on money leads to trouble.
如果你集中精神在钱的事的话，也会带来很多问题。
So the first thing a person needs to decide is, are there absolute rights and wrongs?
所以一个人要去决定是不是某一些事情是完全错的，或者是对的。
If there is no absolute right or wrong, then there is no wickedness.
如果没有对的错的话，就没有恶人，
There is no righteousness.
也没有公义。
If anything is okay, then everything is okay.
如果对这些事情都觉得都可以的话，那么所有的事情都觉得可以。
And we get punished only when we don't do what the king wants us to do.
如果王叫我们做的事情我们没有去做的时候，我们就会被惩罚。
So verse 6 makes very good sense. Don't exhaust yourself in the king's presence.
所以第6节就会让我们明白，不要在王面前往自大，
And don't push to claim a place with the great men.
也不要在大人的位上站立。
Wait for them to invite you to come on up here with us.
你宁可有人说，请你上来。
If you're fighting and pushing to get to the top of the ladder, you will be humiliated along the way.
如果你在爬梯子的时候争先恐后的话，就会后面的结局就会很
I guess we can take verse 8 and 9. Who wants to read verse 8 and 9?
我先
Shuan?
谁要读第8节、第9节？舒文，你来读。
好，不要冒失出去与人争竞，免得至宗被他羞辱，你就不知道怎样行了。你以邻舍争讼，要以他一人争辩，不可泄露人的密事。阿门。
One of the best
Amen.
things you can have, one of the best things you can have is a good reputation.
你能够得到最好的一件事，就是有好的名声。
And you don't get a good reputation arguing everything before the king in the court.
如果你在法庭上与王来争辩的话，那你不会有一个好的名声。
If your neighbor has something against you, go talk to your neighbor.
如果你的邻舍要跟你争讼的话，那你就跟他去讨论。
If you don't solve the problem with your neighbor, bring a friend.
如果你没有办法跟他解决这个问题的话，那你就带一个朋友来。
Your friend comes not to gang up on your neighbor, but to listen to the argument.
那你的朋友来的意思不是说你就去让你的邻舍没办法跟你争辩，而是让你的朋友来
You bring your friend, you bring your
一起讨论这个事。
you bring your friend in as a judge, not as an advocate, not as a lawyer on your side.
那你是把你的朋友带到你们中间，就好像他是一个法官一样，不是像你的律师一样替你辩护的。
So when you see injustice, don't jump and go to court.
所以不要冒失的出去与人争竞。
What happens if you lose your case in court?
如果你在法庭上你败诉的话，会怎么样呢？
You get a bad reputation of being too quick to judge.
因为你会被别人说你太快去评断这件事，就
So,
没有好的名声了。
so first talk it over with your neighbor.
所以你先要跟你的邻居商讨。
What you've been told in confidence, keep in confidence.
所以你如果人家告诉你一些秘密的话，那你就不能够泄露这些密事。
All of us have had somebody tell us, who told you that?
我们经常都会听到有人说：“哦，谁跟你说的？”
And I always say, it doesn't matter who told me.
我总是回答说：“哦，谁跟我说的不重要，
Is it true?
这到底是不是事实呢？”
Let your yes be yes, your no be no. Is it true?
你是就是是，不是就是不是，这个到底是不是事实呢？
A wise man said, settle your case before you get to court.
所以，一个智慧的人他会说：“你在去法庭之前解决你们之间的事情。
Once it gets to court, only the lawyers are going to get rich.
一旦进入法庭，只有律师会 赚到钱的。
You won't get out until all your money is gone to the lawyers.
你不会从这个案子中解脱出来的，直到你的钱都花光了。
That was the wisdom 2,000 years ago.
这些都是2000年前的智慧，
From the one who created the heavens and the earth.
从创造宇宙万物的神那里。
The best thing you can get, the best thing you can give your children is a good name, a good reputation.
你能给你的孩子最好的就是给他一个好的名声，让他有个好的名声。
So let's pray.
所以我们祷告。
Are you able to pray, Mary John?
张老师，你可以祷告吗？
Busy with the children. Luchan,
Yes.
I think we'll let
好，我来
Shu-In,
祷告。
I think we'll let Shu-In pray. Does that sound good?
我们要说 ，Yes， 主啊，你来祷告。
天父，我们感谢赞美你，谢谢你赐给我们箴言里的这么多智慧，让我们在人生